and welcome to the Mountain Mystic Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Hemphill, welcoming you today, whether you're brand new to the show or a returning listener. I'm so happy to have you here today, coming to you from a very snowy day here in northern New Mexico, our first big snowstorm of the year. I'm recording this looking out my window at this just massive, beautiful ponderosa standing so tall out my window. And right now she is just covered in a coat of white, just beautiful, dazzling snow as it keeps coming down. Oh, and as it is just filling me with so much joy. Filling me with so much joy right now. Every time I look out the window, every time I look out my window at the forest, all the ponderosas around me, my home, all the ponderosas that live here with me, my small little mountain town here, nestled up at the base of the Jemez Mountains. And I wanted to start today by calling in the snow and that what brings me joy, so much joy, starting off today by calling in joy. What lights you up? A moment to let it fill you. Maybe it's snow. Maybe snow isn't a good example. I know a lot of people who, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me, but to them, don't really like the snow. So maybe it's snow for you, maybe it's something different, but a moment to call in what brings you joy. Letting it fill you. Letting it fill you with light as we get started today, because well, today we're going to travel into some challenging territory, and as we travel through this space that is working in challenging territories, sometimes very deeply challenging territory, I've found, and because I found this is powerful for me, and I've heard it's powerful for the people that I'm in connection with, I want to teach it here so that you can also be in a powerful process that has everything to do with dealing with challenging spaces. And what I found is that if we can enter into challenging spaces in a way where we are allowing ourselves to be filled with light, well, then this becomes a powerful process for creating change for the better in this world. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. Today, we are going to get focused on conversation and probably some practice on how it is that we become a force of change in this world, a force of change for the better, a force of change that really, truly heals this world, transforms it into something more beautiful, more joy-filled, more light-filled, more love-filled, all those good things that we want, right? All those good things that we want. And I don't mean our egoic minds. I mean our heart, our soul. What is it that you want? What are those good, light-filled, joy-filled things that you want in this world? Like, to feel good, to feel joy-filled, to feel connected, to feel supported, nourished, held, safe, fulfilled. What is it? What is it that you want, heart and soul? Well, for me, as I'm sitting here in this space, what I want is to change this world, to be a force of change in this world, and to teach you a process for being a force of change in this world. That has everything to do with getting ourselves out of this great mess of things alive on planet Earth and calling in a new way of being on planet Earth where we are free to be filled with joy, where we are free to pursue the paths that light us up and bring us real fulfillment, that we are free to put our attention on solving the problems that actually matter, where we are free to live life as these beautifully sovereign and unique human beings that we are. That's what I want. I want it for myself. I want it for you. I want it for all of life on this planet Earth. And the reality is that I find myself in a time that isn't well attuned to this desire and in a lot of ways is actively opposing it. There are powerful forces at play in this world that are working hard to take away my humanity, your humanity, the humanity of people across the world. There are powerful forces at play that completely disrespect life and the expression of life and would choose to control it, manipulate it, lie to it, and take from it for their own gain. And as I sit in reality today, I'm sitting on a day that follows the results of the 2024 US election, and the results came in yesterday, and I'm sitting with the reality that my nation has once again chosen a leader who stands for everything that is taking from another, spreading lies, spreading stories that are all about manipulation and control for the gain of those who are already in power. And it breaks my heart. And in this breaking of my heart, I've been sitting in a space of deep grief. And to be honest, a lot of fear and sitting in grief, sitting in this form of reality that I don't want to be in, reality that I didn't choose. I don't want this. I don't want this. I want this to change. I want this to be different. Sitting in the space knowing that the power of my thoughts to want something different isn't the power, isn't the force of change that actually means much, if not anything, on this planet. It isn't me and what I want. That is the mechanism of change to call in a newer, brighter, more beautiful way of being for all of life on planet Earth. It isn't me sitting here thinking and wanting, but instead, asking, well, what is truly the most powerful force of change that I can summon to truly change the state of things for life on this planet Earth? Because I do want to change things. I want to change things in this world for my own self, because I know that there are forces in this world that are negatively impacting me, my physical health, my mental health, well-being, my ability to freely express in the way that I want to. I want to change things for my family, my loved ones, my friends, my community. I want to change things for people on the other side of the world, because I know the systems that I'm part of are directly impacting them too, in ways that are honestly horrific at this point. And sitting in a space of wanting to change things, knowing that it's going to take me more than wanting. So what is it? What is it that is the most powerful force of change? What is it that will allow us to become the most powerful force of change that we can be? Forces of change that call in the light, bring in the light, that heal this world, that transform the world for the better. How can we do this in a way that actually ensures, maybe not, to 100% because we're human and we're imperfect, but, to a high degree, ensures that what we're doing is actually bringing through a brighter, more beautiful path forward. So if you're new to me, don't know much about what I'm doing, or really haven't spent a whole lot of time listening into the background of what we're doing here, this is work that, we can use different words to describe. I like to speak of this as embodiment work, as new earth embodiment work. Sometimes I find myself in new earth priestessing spaces. So like today, before sitting down to record this, I was holding a new earth priestessing circle, this beautiful circle that I get to hold every month with wonderful women who all show up to be in space together, where we get to focus fully on healing this world that we are all part of, really holding the whole of the earth as we hold space for our own communities, our own ecosystems, our own families, our own bodies, our own selves. This is a theme alive in this work that is all about connection, all about bringing together that which has been separated by constructs of the human mind, right? We live in a world so deeply separated because we live in a world ruled by the mind. We live in a world ruled by the mind. And, bringing the mind on board isn't a bad thing. I have to speak directly to this because I have to be careful with what I say when I start speaking to how we've built a world based on the power of the mind, and in doing so, created a world that is so far polarized in the direction of separation. The mind is this beautiful, beautiful part of yourself, part of reality, part of being a human being. But the way the mind works is to create constructs, to create frameworks, to try to make meaning. And it can only do it with its limited powers. And with its limited powers of the mind, the way that it works is to separate, to divide, to cut the world apart, to break it apart into pieces that it can understand, that it can make sense of. Now, as a scientist and engineer, and as a biomedical engineer in the neuroscience field, what I can really speak to is how beautiful this power can be, right? The power to use your mind to make meaning, to make sense in this world, to problem solve. This is wonderful when we do it in the context that is the greater picture of all the power that we have as human beings. And when we live in a world of separation, mind over matter, mind separate from body, mind over body, what happens is that we polarize our world into a world that is established on separation, right? How many times can I say the word separation, right? We get it. We live in a world that's so disconnected. And this disconnection I believe, is a root of why there is so much pain and suffering in this world. We have disconnected mind from body. We have disconnected neighbor from neighbor, self from community, country from country. As we speak to the root of all these problems, I can start naming all the ways that it causes suffering in this world. And so we can work by addressing problems individually, calling upon the power of the mind to isolate the problem, get clear on the problem, work very stepwise to work through each problem. This is how I learned as a scientist engineer to solve problems, and it's a beautiful process in certain situations. But when we take a step back and look out on the world as it is in its whole, well, we can see that the root problem is that we live in a world of separation. We live in a world of mind over matter, and therefore the path forward isn't to keep trying to solve problems, to work our way through our challenges, doing the same thing that created them, but instead to ask, how do we do things differently? To hold space, how can we be present in this world in a way that actually moves us forward through these challenges? How can we be present in the world in a way that actually moves us through these deep, great challenges of our time, those that cause such pain, such suffering to life in so many different forms on this planet right now? And again, naming this as New Earth space. This is a complete transformation of the way we think and act and work and live and breathe in this world. It's a complete transformation. And I'm not saying we do it overnight. I'm not saying that what I'm bringing to you on this podcast is going to move us right on through to the other side. But instead, what I'm doing here is inviting you into a specific space. And what I'm doing here is inviting you to walk with me along a path, a particular path where what we're doing is being a stand for being this force of change in this world, because we see this world, we feel this world, we know what this world is, and we're not okay with it anymore. We're making a stand to be what this world needs to transform. And we know that it's not going to happen overnight, but we know that with each step of this path, we are taking action that matters, and we are taking action step by step that is going to change this world for the better. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what this path is. Again, we can speak to this path as a sort of new earth path. We can speak to it as an embodiment path. I say this a lot, and it's worth mentioning again that, words are important and the language we use to speak to what we're doing is important. But more than anything, right? Language is a tool of the mind. Again, powerful. But when any tool of the mind is stripping us away from the thing that matters, well, there's a challenge to overcome. So if words I'm using kind of turn you away from the thing that matters right now, like I know I have a lot of stuff around the term New Earth. I have a lot of stuff around any sort of spiritual path, and I've had to do a lot of work within myself to get to this space, to be able to be in this space, work in this space, teach in this space. And a lot of that has to do with language. So use language that works for you. If you don't particularly resonate with the words I'm using, they're just words. They're words that I'm trying to cultivate to best speak to this space. But really what we're doing here, right? What we're doing here is calling in a new way of being. We're calling in a new way of being a force of change in this world. We're becoming people who are the change in the world for the better. How do we do this? That's what we're going to talk about. That's what we are about to dive right into. And the way I'm going to do this is speak to it in a sort of two-step process, knowing as we walk into this that what I'm really doing here is taking what is a big, often messy, interwoven, dynamic sort of process and distilling it down into 2 steps, because that's going to help your mind and its limited ability to understand the actual mechanics of our world. It's going to help you understand. So I'm going to teach this as a 2-step process. It is a way more step process than that. And as we start talking about it, you're going to see that. We're going to talk about it in terms of step 1 and step 2. So our process here, our new earth embodiment process for being a force of change in the world, creating a new way of being in this world on planet Earth in a way that truly brings forth healing, that brings forth transformation, that leads us away from suffering. Oh, there is so much suffering in our world right now, and we have got to start moving away from it. And as we move away from it, we get to move towards more light, more joy, more freedom, more connection, greater nourishment, all those good things that light us up, make us feel good. That's what we want, right? That's what we want. But how do we do this? How do we do this? Because there's a way that's been taught in this world how we do this. And the way it's been taught in this world is the very thing that's actually kept me far away from any sort of spiritual or religious space for most of my life. I stayed so far away. So now I always laugh at the divine comedy that, I'm here calling myself a spiritual teacher, because for so long I stayed so far away from any spiritual realm because it reeked of BS, because it reeked of this spiritual bypassing that teaches us how to call in more light, how to be love, how to be peace, joy. Oh, this light, it's always here. You can simply, in any moment, call it in and become it. And in doing so, we can do it in a way that just strips us out of reality, takes us right out of reality and into a world of everlasting light where everything is just so good. Meanwhile, what's actually happening is we're just becoming disembodied, stripped out of the world we live in, leaving behind reality and all the pain and suffering that is here and being perpetuated on Earth. And I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with this spiritual bypassing. I'm not okay with bypassing reality in any way that it forms up. So maybe it's, the love and light of spirituality. Maybe it's building rocket ships so that we can get off this planet and get to Mars. Maybe it's outsourcing all our agency to science and technology because it's going to solve our problems for us. And that, I don't need to be here present in reality because someone else out there is going to come up with some sort of technical solution and it's going to take these problems away from me. Right? There's all these ways that we bypass reality. And it breaks me that we live in a world that is so eager to bypass reality. And so when I started asking a question years ago, right? Years ago, and I'm in the space that is deeply immersed in science and technology and health and medicine, and really asking this question, like, how is it that we actually transform this world for the better? How is it that we actually heal, become healthier beings, filled with more vitality, filled with less pain, filled with more joy, having the better ability to live life the way we want to, right? Calling in light this way. How is it that we actually do this in a way that is real, manifest, true in this reality, in these very human bodies that we are, as these very human beings that we are? How do we do it, right? Asking this question, starting from a space. I'm literally in research labs coming up with solutions for health problems, right? And then later as a health coach, working to understand this great and vast world that is metabolic health and nutrition, holding this question, continuing to ask this question, letting the asking of this question guide me to the path, the process. I want to know the mechanism. How can I be a force of change in this world for the better? How can we actually solve our problems, move forward through challenges? Letting this be my guiding question. And where I found myself was on a path that started leading me through different spiritual traditions. First, really starting out in Buddhist form of meditation, mindfulness meditation, then finding myself to yoga, really immersing myself deep in the world of yoga. Later, moving on, finding myself on what we call the path of a priestess, so priestessing. Well, I haven't spoken about this publicly yet, so here we go. But I just finished up this 18-month, just deep immersion on this priestessing path, and just being put through the ringer, the gauntlet on what it means to live and breathe and be in this world that is embodied spirituality. A world of spirituality where, no, we're not bypassing. We're not calling in light that is stripping us out of reality, but we are learning to ground down into reality, become so present in reality. How present can we become in reality, right? And this is really the space I'm teaching from. And this is really the space we're hanging out in step one of our process for being the change in this world that our world really needs right now. How can we be a force of change in this world? Well, we can't be a force of change in this world unless we are present in it. Let me say that again. We cannot be a force of change in this world unless we are truly present in it. Yeah, we can stand outside of truth and reality and be puppeteers over here and manipulate the world and, try to change it and force changes upon it in a way that, we think might be better. But is that really the skillful path forward? Because that is in a lot of ways what we've been doing, right? We've been keeping reality at arm's length, sometimes way further away than that. We've been holding reality at a distance because we aren't able nor willing to be present in it. And what does it mean to be present in it? Well, to be present in it, you have to be in tune with reality, connected to reality in a way where you are actually calling upon all your senses. You are actually being present in and as the human body that you are. You are breathing with reality. You are feeling reality, sensing it. You are sensing the world around you just as you are sensing the world within you. This is reality here, now, in this moment. So how deeply in this moment can you become attuned to this moment? Can you connect to this moment? So right now, do it with me. We feel your seat in connection, right? Your sits bones, your root in connection with the seat you sit on. Or maybe you're standing, walking around, so your feet in connection to the floor beneath you. So feeling into that sensation, connecting you with the surface that's holding you here in this moment. Taking some deep breaths, feeling into the expansion of your lungs, feeling your breath as it enters into your body. Breathing here just for a moment. Maybe you listen. What sounds are in the room? Maybe you smell what smell is in the room. Maybe you turn your attention inward a little deeper. What is present in your heart? What is present in your lungs? What is present? This one might be a little edgy, might be a little crunchy, so, feel free to skip this one. But what is present in your womb? Whether or not you have a physical womb, what is present in that second chakra area right below your belly button? What is present in your root as it's in connection to the ground beneath you? Becoming present with reality as it is. This is step one. Knowing that step one is itself a whole process. Step one in itself is, in a way, the whole path, right? The whole path. Not getting taken away into any too high level ideas of spirituality. What's the whole point of us being here anyway? We won't go down that rabbit hole. But in speaking to step one, maybe shine light on some of those answers. That how present can we be with reality? Calling upon all our senses, all our feelings, emotions, what's here, what's alive in this moment. This is step one for being a force of change in this world for the better. You cannot change this world with skill without being present in this world. And the path is becoming ever more present in this world. Working to overcome all the obstacles, all the blocks that keep you in disconnection, that keep you away from presence. So let's talk about this here for a moment, because this is huge, right? Because again, going back to this point that we have been taught to live in a world severed mind from body, right? As a scientist engineer, I was taught not to trust my feelings, not to trust my emotions. It's unskillful. Don't let those feelings in. Stay up in your head. Stay focused. This is what's skillful. And in certain moments, yeah, maybe that is what's most skillful. But as we move through life, this is what keeps us in disconnection. And because our world values mind over matter, our world actively teaches us to be in mind over matter, disconnected from our physical selves. Well, we built up all this programming, all this wiring, and this has happened across your lifetime. This has happened in your ancestors, and they've passed that on to you. This way of being in which we are not connected into feeling, into motion, into sensation. We're disconnected from it. We don't listen to it. We're taught not to trust it. We're taught that it's unskillful to be present with it. And now we know how living in that world, right? How living in that state, we know what sort of world that creates. This is the world we're living in. This is a world of mind over matter, of let me stay stuck up in my head because I know what's best for me and I know what's best for this world. Meanwhile, I'm not actually present with this world, so how could I know what's best? Oh, the space we're working in. So here we are. We're moving away from a world of disconnection, of power over, of full reign of the ego. We're coming into felt connection with self, because in felt connection with self, this is how we are present in the world that we're in. This is how we become present in the world we're in. And in becoming present to the world we're in, what happens? So what happens is we're sitting here in step 1, becoming more deeply, ever more deeply present with the world we're in. Well, there's this fun thing that happens in this space. As we're here, simply bringing our consciousness to what is here. Simply bringing your awareness to what is here. What is here in your senses, in your feelings, in your emotions? What is here? The sound in the room that you're in, the vision coming in through your eyes, in your heart as it pulses within you. What is here? What is here in this moment? Simply bringing your conscious awareness to it. This is still step 1. We are still in step 1 of this process. Bringing our consciousness to the moment. What is here? The fun part, the amazing part, the magical part is that simply by bringing your consciousness to something, you already start to shift it. You already start to change it. And we know this. We know this. Quantum physics tells us this. We have hard data that shows us that simply by changing the observer of an experiment, simply changing the way something is witnessed, changes the results of the experiment, right? We have hard data on this coming from the world of physics, and you can play with this too. You know, there's this fun experiment I've heard people doing it, and there might even be some published data on this. I'm not quite sure on that, but I know I've heard, this one comes up a lot. You can do this experiment where you have 2 different plants, same plant, give the plant the same nutrients, the same water, the same light, right? This is an experiment. So keep all variables constant between plants. The only thing you change is give one of these plants your loving awareness, your consciousness. Bring your loving attention to one of those plants. And other than, giving the other plant the basic necessities, feed it, water it, make sure all those factors are the same. Don't give it any of your attention. But the other plant, just give it your attention. Place your consciousness on this plant, your love-filled consciousness on this plant. And that plant grows differently. And again, don't take my word for this. I don't have a particular pile of peer-reviewed published literature to guide you to say, no, this has been proven. But I have heard this enough, and believing, understanding, having experienced myself these mechanics, I believe it. So, an invitation to go try it out yourself. Simply bringing your loving attention to something changes it. So there's this other piece here, right? As now we're talking, right? Now things are getting a little bit juicy because we're still in step 1. We're talking about being present in reality and how important it is, because we have to be present in reality if we're going to change it. We cannot bypass. Bypassing does not change the world for the better. So we're done bypassing. We're being a stand. No, I refuse to allow myself to be taken out of this world into whatever form of something better that you've been sold on. No, we're done with that. We're here. We're learning to be ever more fully present in felt connection to reality. And as we're here learning to bring our full consciousness to reality, we're learning that in being present, just bringing our full consciousness to the moment, we are already starting to change the moment. And we can do this, right? We know that this has an impact. And because it has an impact, what we have here is actually a double-edged sword. Because in one way, by bringing our love-filled attention to a moment, we can start to shift it for the better. But the other side of this is that knowing that anytime we bring our consciousness, our awareness, our attention to something in the present moment, we are already starting to change it. Well, then we better darn well be careful with what flavor of consciousness we are allowing to flow through us into the world around us. Because even when we aren't actively trying to change the world around us, we are always impacting the world around us. Now, there's a fun way that's popping in my head to talk about this. I love working with different archetypes, different gods, goddesses. This is a lot of what I've been doing in my priestessing work, is opening up to these different archetypes. And we can call them gods, goddesses, whatever language works best for you. But I've been working with, or maybe I should say being worked by, Medusa these last few months. And wow, has she been working with me? Wow, has she been working deeply, deeply with me? This Gorgon, this woman that our myths have just turned into this Gorgon. She's shown up to work with me, to guide me, to show me, to help transform me, bring me these lessons in beauty and what it means to be powerful in this very feminine role, and shows me the way that this can turn dark. And Medusa being this figure that was a beautiful, powerful priestess, this beautiful, powerful priestess that was wounded. And because she was wounded, we turned her into this demon, this Gorgon. And one way Medusa works with me is, what does Medusa do, right? And all the myths, all the portrayals of her that you've seen, well, we fear Medusa, right? We fear Medusa because one glance, right? She casts her gaze at you and you meet her eye. And what does she do? She turns you to stone, right? With one cast of her gaze, she turns you to stone. What power in the ability of your gaze to turn somebody to stone. So what does that mean for you? What does that mean for you? Have you ever been turned to stone? Have you ever met someone's gaze, their icy glare, and been turned to stone? Frozen in place? What sensation is alive in you, this being turned to stone? Maybe you go back to a time in childhood where, I don't know, maybe you were stealing a cookie from the cookie jar or something, and your mom comes in and she casts a glare at you and you freeze because you've been caught in something you shouldn't be doing, and now you've been turned to stone. How many times does this happen in our world? Have you done it to someone? Has someone done it to you? With just a look of their gaze, just simply their conscious attention, your conscious awareness, just your gaze, changing someone, turning them to stone, freezing them, right? And what I'm getting here is it's like this feeling of shame. Like it's like a shaming, a freezing. And it's just being an example, right? This just being an example that I'm calling in so that we can, bring online this understanding that where and how we cast our gaze, how we bring our attention to something, it matters. And because it matters, we better be cultivating awareness on what flavor of consciousness we are bringing into the world. Do you really want to be turning people to stone? Right? Is that actually skillful? Is it actually skillful to bring through this icy glare to people in this world? Or is there another way that you can bring your presence, your consciousness to something that may transfer light, love, whatever words you want to use there to describe this transfer of energy through your consciousness? Because that's what you're doing, right? That's what you're doing when you're bringing your consciousness to something, is you're directing energy. This is what consciousness does. When you bring consciousness to something, you are bringing energy to it, right? So energy is always flowing through you in all these ways that your mind can just barely begin to understand. But our mind wants to understand, and we want to manipulate and control the flow of energy in this world. So we do our best to create these constructs and create these frameworks and create these systems and processes so that we can better understand and control the flow of energy in this world. And there's a reason for doing it that's positive, that does good for this world. And also, we have to be humble and recognize that energy is flowing in this world in a way that goes so far beyond that which our minds will ever comprehend. So, what we can do instead, or more like in parallel with, right? Because the mind and its powers is part of the whole embodiment path. What we can do is cultivate the skill around how and where we place our consciousness, knowing that in every moment where we place our consciousness is going to direct our energy. So if I'm choosing in a moment to bring consciousness to my heart, that's diverting the flow of energy to my heart. And if I'm bringing energy to my heart, what flavor of consciousness, what flavor of energy am I allowing to go into my heart? And if I'm bringing the flow of consciousness to the meal I'm creating for my family, what sort of energy am I putting into it? And if I'm bringing consciousness to a boardroom, right, a room full of people, or maybe there's a community center, maybe a whole family gathering, gathering of friends. I'm working as a bartender now, so if I'm bringing my consciousness to a room full of people here to hang out and be social, what is the flavor of energy that I'm bringing to all these people? It matters. It matters the flavor of energy that I am putting out. Again, simply in casting my gaze. That's going to impact the people in the room. And how can we cultivate awareness around what kind of energy we're bringing through? Right? This isn't a topic I'm going to go into in too much depth today because it's a whole nother rabbit hole that I can get into. But bringing some awareness to it for you today, something to bring awareness to in your life. bringing mindfulness to this. What happens when you bring a certain flavor of energy to a room, to a person, to your own self? What changes then? What happens? And is this what you really want? Is this actually what's bringing more light into this world? Okay, so how are we doing on step 1, right? We all know we're still in step 1. Step 1 for how we become a powerful force of change for the better in this world. We cultivate skill on where we're placing our consciousness. We are becoming more present as reality. This is all the same process, right? This is all cultivating skill, becoming present, in tune with reality. It's a skill of how and when and where we place our consciousness. How focused is your consciousness? How expanded is your consciousness? How much are you in tune with this moment? That's all here. Step 1. We ready to move into step 2? Moving into step 2. So we're here. We're becoming ever more fully present in this moment. Our consciousness, our awareness is in this moment. We're not skipping out on this moment because it's tough, it's crunchy. We're working through our wounds that make this present moment painful. We're working through those programmed responses that kick us out of the moment. We're doing all of it. We're becoming ever more present, more skillfully in this moment. And as we're in this moment, what happens? Well, we're automatically changing the moment. And we're getting more skillful around changing this moment for the better simply by placing our consciousness here. And what's happening here? Well, what is happening here? What is lighting up in you in this moment? What is lighting up in you in this moment? What information is coming to you in this moment? What is being spoken within? Hey, your attention is here, but now move your attention here. Because in being here, I now see this, and now my attention is being moved to this place. And in moving my attention to this place, how am I being shown? What am I seeing? What am I thinking of? What lights are coming on? What pings of insight am I getting? What solutions are becoming present so that now I can move, I can shift my attention. I can shift my attention forward into the next moment. I can now become the change. I can now become the transformation, moving into the next moment. How can I be moved into the next moment with the answer to the problem, with the direction to be taken? Maybe it's a moving into the next moment, the next level of healed. How is it that you are moved from this present moment into the next moment? What is being asked of you to do in the next moment? And this is how we move from step 1 into step 2. This step 1, bringing your presence to the moment. In this moment, in the listening, how can I be moved into the next moment so that I can bring forward a new moment with more skill? How can I change the next moment because of what I've received here and now? And this right here is the core of the mechanism of action that I am becoming more and more attuned to for becoming that force of change, becoming the vessel for change, being the shift, being the transformation. By being ever more present in this moment and allowing myself to be moved into the next moment with more skill, with more grace, full of more light. In this core mechanism of action, right? Because we're here really at a core mechanism of action, which we then get to expand upon. How does this unfold throughout your whole day? How do you live and breathe and move through your day, becoming ever more present to reality as you are listening and responding to that reality, taking action in the direction that is being lit up? Yes, there are problems to be solved. There are challenges to overcome, and we have to work through those. But how are you working through those? Again, are you staying stuck up in your head, trying to just think and think and think and think and think through it, while meanwhile you're really just being taken out of reality? Or is there a way you can become more present in reality? Listening, feeling you are connected to reality, being in reality, and from this space being moved into skillful direction. Oh, this is the best way to solve this problem. This is the best way to work through this challenge. This is the best way to heal this wound. This is the best way to resolve this conflict. From where I stand, present in connection to this moment. So once again, really naming that this process is not at all whatsoever about disconnecting you from your mind and its power to take in information, to work its magic, to solve problems, to work through very real challenges. Please hear me when I say that I want your mind on board, thinking, processing, working through the challenges at play in our world. But I want your mind connected to the greater whole. And the way you do that is by becoming ever more present in felt connection to all that you are, all your senses, your feelings, your emotions, because that's how you get input from reality. That's how reality speaks to you. That's how you find yourself in connection to the world that you are very much so a part of. This is the path forward. This is the embodied path forward. You can call it the new earth embodiment process. Some fun words, use them if you want. Don't use them if they bring in funky spirituality speak that you're not really on board with. I know there's a part of me that is still there. Maybe one day it'll be gone, but for now, still a little crunchy even as I own that title. Whew. Alrighty, friends. What a conversation. What a conversation. Now that we're here and as we're starting to kind of ease out of this conversation, I'll speak to the fact that this is actually the second time I've brought this through today. Had a nice technical glitch earlier today, filmed what I believed was an amazing podcast, and my whole computer crashed and I lost it all. And then I got mad and frustrated and had to go through the process that is being present with reality, feeling my feelings, being in tune with what I really want, what I really desire, and I could get caught up in my feelings and be angry and say, forget it, I don't need to record this. But instead, I sat with the present moment and I listened to how important it is for me to record this podcast today and sat here for another hour, recorded it all again for you. So hope it came through just as good, if not better, the second time. Reality is a funny thing, guys, and there's a lot of trickster energy in the air right now. A lot of energy stirred up, a lot of forces at play that are working hard to prevent us from showing up in the world that we're part of. Not saying that's necessarily trickster energy that led to a full hard drive and Audacity crashing on me. That was mere negligence on my part. So I will own responsibility for that error as I look out on the world and, turn my attention to the powerful forces that really are at play, that are really actively trying to keep us shut down, prevent us from living in our full expression, from healing, from moving forward. And, as we start to close down today, really, once again, with my whole heart and soul, just calling you into the next degree. Maybe not every single thing in today's podcast spoke to you, resonated with you, but the parts that did, calling those in, an invitation to work with them. There's a lot of ways to deepen into them. There's a lot of ways I'm offering right now to deepen into this work. Free meditations right now up on my website. Right now, my Deep Roots meditation is one I created to really help ground us into the present moment. It's really about grounding into connection with self, with earth. That one's still up. I think I'll be taking that one down soon because I put it in a series of meditations that I think is a better place for it. That one I'm selling online right now. So if you want that Deep Roots meditation for free, act quickly. Otherwise, you can find it in my latest offering, this You Are the Forest, sort of an embodiment 101 series of guided meditations. So you can find that up on the website as well. If you're interested in being in circle with me, like the circle I held today, reach out. I'm not offering any sort of public links to access it directly right now. I'm also holding space for other circles to open up. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. So I know there's interest so that I can get you into the circle I'm already holding, if that speaks to you. There's a lot happening right now in all the spaces I'm on. So make sure you're connected with me. Not only here, subscribe to the podcast. That means go subscribe to the podcast if you haven't yet. So not just here, but also on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the places. I'm Substack. Find me on Substack. This is my favorite place right now, other, of course, than this podcast. Substack is where I'm writing as well as bringing through guided practices. It's a space where you can come along as a paid subscriber to help support me and my ability to bring this work through. Whew. Okay, you guys. I think there we are. There we have it. Hoping this has served you in some way. I know I know we spoke to a lot today, and if you're feeling like more doors have opened than answers have been given, that's a beautiful place to be in, because there's so much more to speak to in this body of work. So stick around. Let's keep having these conversations. Find me in other places, deepen in, connect in all those other ways. All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much for listening today. Closing down for now, and I look forward to catching you next time on the podcast, or catching you in whatever space it is that we find ourselves in.